So, as we come to the end of chapter 11, we see this build up towards the confrontation, which ends up in the crucifixion. Okay, and there's conflict as we read through the passage. We see that there are those who believe and those who don't, those who talk about it in a positive way, those who talk about it in a negative way, and all of this comes back to the ruling authorities, the Jewish authorities, and they realise that they're getting nowhere, and they realise that, of course, actually this is a serious threat, and so that actually drives them to the point whereby they'll actually plan to have Jesus killed. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that you've got a theme that I've mentioned before, whereby people react to Jesus according to their character. The idea being that those who are hungry for power think that Jesus is hungry for power, and so they try to counter him on that political sense. Those who are deceitful think that Jesus is deceitful. Those who are truthful believe that Jesus is truthful. And so how you react to Jesus actually is nothing to do with Jesus. It's all to do with me. Right? I react to Jesus according to my heart. So if I think Jesus is evil, that's because I'm evil. Okay? If I think Jesus is up to no good, that's because I'm up to no good. If I think Jesus is truthful, that's because I'm full of truth. And so therefore, there's this reaction that the reader is challenged to have. Say, look, just how are you reacting to Jesus? Are you hostile to him? Because what does that say about you? Okay, and the same could be said for other situations as well. Gossips always think everyone's gossiping about them. Liars always think that everybody's telling lies, so on and so forth. So if you are an innocent-minded person, an innocent, pure-hearted person, you always think good of people. You always think the best of people. At least you should. All right. So that's the general theme that's emerging here, and the question is, as you read John's Gospel, how do you respond to Jesus? What is your thought? What is your response to him? Because it's really actually a reflection of our own character. Okay. There's wonderful irony in a couple of things here, right? They say, look, if we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take both our place and our nation. By place, they actually mean the temple. Okay, they're going to take our temple, and they're going to take our nation, right? And of course, the irony in this, the twist in this, is of course actually we know that the Romans came and took both the temple and the city and the whole nation as a judgment, a divine judgment from God. So it's actually because they rejected Jesus that they rejected Jesus that actually their nation and their place was taken from them. Can you see the irony in that? There's this kind of twist, because they're thinking, oh, we need to stop him because it's going to disturb the status quo. Actually, the status quo was destroyed because they rejected him, and so therefore actually their very actions are the actions that bring about the consequences that they are trying to avoid. All right. There's this wonderful thing here also, of course, is that Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, prophesies. He says it's better that one man should die for the people than the whole nation should perish. I mean, that is a summary of the gospel. And it says that he didn't say this of his own accord, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation. But not only the nation only, but also to gather the children of God who are scattered abroad. Okay, we'll come to that in a moment. Now, first of all, just thinking about this is a man who's plotting the death of Jesus. This is a man who's in rebellion against God, and yet somehow or other he prophesies. Now, I don't know many deeper statements of the sovereignty of God than this. It's this extraordinary thought that right here in this pit of vipers, God is still dictating the conversation, which brings about the whole dilemma, the whole paradox of the fact that God is the one who actually orchestrated the death of Jesus, that it's God who actually stirred men's hearts to do all these evil things so that you could save the nation and save indeed the whole world. All right. This is extraordinary. When you see the sovereignty of God, we assume We always think of sin, by definition, is that which God doesn't want. And yet actually God is the one who's bringing about these things. I mean, this is a has profound implications when it comes to the debate of determinism or predestination, God's sovereignty, his control over all things. It's just mind-blowing. Because, all those things that we think are out of control, all those things that we think are dreadful, and we classify them as sin, actually God is somehow or other often bringing them about, or can do. That's what this passage seems to be implying. Okay, I have difficulty getting my head around that. I have difficulty actually accepting that morally, but it is there, and I can't deny it, The other thing that he says here for the nation, not only for the nation, but also to gather into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. Oh, wow. Okay, here's one in the eye for dispensationalism. Okay, according to dispensational thinking, the nation rejected Jesus, and so then God turned to the Gentiles, and that's where we get the church. That was never the plan. The plan was always to gather the Gentiles in. That's where you get it in all the Old Testament scriptures like Amos 9 and other scriptures about gathering in the Gentiles, about bringing in the nations, about the nations flooding to Jerusalem and coming to Zion, coming to Jesus, to hear the word of the Lord. Okay, there's been no change of plan. This is all planned. This is all orchestrated by God. Okay, that's the first thing that we noted in that verse. But also we see here that the plan of God is to bring together people from every nation into one people. Okay, that was always plan A. The church is not plan B, or a parenthesis while the clock is put on hold for Israel. Okay, the church is always part of plan A. It's a continuation to bring together one nation based on faith. And it's just extraordinary. I mean, this little line here is so often just overlooked, but actually it completely, of course, torpedoes the whole idea of dispensationalism. It really does. It's quite extraordinary. So, yes, he's going to have one flock. Indeed, that's an echo of chapter 10, of course. The sheep that are not in this fold, that will be brought together as one flock. All right, then. So that means that Jesus doesn't walk about openly. Okay, and of course we have Passover mentioned. It's not just incidental, it's there for a reason. It's because Jesus is going to die at Passover. He's going to be our Passover lamb, and we'll see that in the book of glory. And John mentions this to put us in mind of the Exodus, to put us in mind of the Passover, to put us in mind of the blood of the lamb that's around the doors, and so on and so forth. All right, so he's setting the scene. All right, here we see, as usual, the confusion, the conversation. These people are not looking for Jesus in the sense that they're seeking God, but they're just looking for the latest news. They're just looking for gossip, as it were. Okay, but we see here that the chief priests confirm that they are indeed bad shepherds, that indeed they will hurt people for standing against them. All right, so that leads into the verdict, as it were, of chapter 12, which we'll read about in the next video.